Welcome back to Holdco Builders. My name is Mick, and today's episode is a little different. It's a solo episode built around a story that really surprised me. Not too long ago, when you take the podcast Invest Like the Best, Patrick O'Shaughnessy had guests Alex, Paul, and Drew Taggart, and better known as the Chainsmokers, the world-famous DJ duo, the Grammy-winning artist. We can even say stadium headliners. But after spending some time listening to them and their story, I really walked away convinced that they are not just DJs, but at heart, who they are operators. And not just, again, DJs, not just like soundboards, but they're really like business operators. They operate brands, they operate teams, and most importantly, they operate systems. And there are so many lessons from them, which I gathered about investing, operating, running traditional businesses. And this is the reason why I decided to do this podcast episode, because when you listen to their story, it's like a 10-year operating journey with all the same patterns, which I've seen after talking to almost 100 great investors, holdco builders, business buyers, business operators, and long-term acquirers here on Holdco Builders podcast. And if you don't know that, but behind the Chainsmokers brand, there is a VC fund which they're running, and they made almost like 210 or 220 investments over the past like 6-7 years. They started in 2019. So I just wanted to create this episode to share all those lessons. And number one thing which really caught my eye was like really being obsessive of your craft, and trying to really understand like what drives the great ones. And when you listen to you and Alex, one obvious fact is that they're not just like casual creators. And Drew, he said like a quote, "We are constantly in search of something we've never heard before." And honestly, it's agonizing. It's torture. And when he said that, he really meant that, because he was very honest with this. And what they were describing wasn't like creative burnout. It was like being obsessed with the quality of being deeply unsatisfied with good enough, of hunting for originality when everything around you is recycled and optimized for short-term metrics like streams and TikTok views. And here we're talking about making music. But again, this gives you many, many lessons when it comes to making investment decisions. And to really understand how deeply this mindset is in their brain, you have to understand their origin story. And what can I say? It's far from glamorous, because in 2012, Alex was managing art galleries and moonlighting as a DJ. And Drew was a music major who barely knew Alex. And they had their manager, if I'm correct, introducing these two people, because before that they weren't a group, they weren't doing music together, there was no record label, no agent, no management, but today's manager introduced themselves, and this is how it all got started. And when they tried to make it and make their dream possible, they started emailing blogs and promoters on their own, like releasing all sorts of unauthorized remixes on SoundCloud just to get noticed. They would spend entire nights in their tiny New York apartment tinkering with sounds, pulling all-nighters to get a single drop or hook just right. And they weren't getting paid. They weren't sleeping that much, they said. They were just working like 7 days a week, unsure if anyone would care. And at one point, they flew themselves to Vegas just to meet the club promoters, sleeping on the floors, borrowing money, and hoping for a chance to prove themselves in front of 150 people. Every time a blog responded their remix, they'd share it manually with everyone they knew. There was simply no viral moment, just a pure grind. And Alex described this period as self-generated chaos. But there was something deeper than hustle. Guys, the business ownership journey is very lonely, and I've partnered with ScalePath to solve that problem. ScalePath has a network of over 2,000 business owners across the US and Europe, and if you book a call with the CEO, Rand Larson, today, he will introduce you to up to 3 business owners in your area. So again, go to joinscalepath.com and book a call with the CEO, Rand Larson, to get to know the 3 business owners in your area. Now, back to the show. Remember the obsession part. What drives the great ones? They were obsessed with doing something different. They didn't want to be just 2 more EDM guys. They wanted to create music that felt honest, melodic, and personal. When other DJs were sticking to bass-heavy drops, Drew started singing on their own tracks. Even though he wasn't a trained vocalist, that was a deliberate choice. They wanted their music to be theirs, not something polished by committee. And the fact that Drew started singing on the tracks and he wasn't a trained vocalist, what he did, and I've been following their journey for many, many years, saw their first concert in Melbourne, I think back in, it was even like 2019 or 2018, and I started reading about this. And Drew, what he did, he hired a professional like singing coach to get better at singing. So another lesson for you, like if you don't know something, just hire someone who's expert at this and just learn this. And when you listen to old songs, when you read the comment section in the YouTube, you can see that people over time, people who understand music and the vocal part and all that, they start saying that, okay, Drew is getting a lot better. He used to be not that good, but now he's getting a lot better. And this is the result of this obsession of getting better, and decided the decision behind this to start learning and getting better at this. So, and if we look like fast forward a decade, they've had over 12 billion streams on Spotify. They headline festivals. They've won a Grammy. But none of that changed the internal wiring, Drew said. Even today, when we sit down to write music, it's like, what if we have nothing left to say? What if we can't surprise ourselves again? That's the cost of obsession. And also, it's power. It keeps them sharp. It really forces them reinvention. This is the cost of obsession, and also its power. It keeps them sharp. It forces reinvention. And this just isn't the music story I'm talking about today. This is what great holdco builders look like behind the scenes. I'm giving you a few examples of few of the guests. One that came to mind was Santino De Franco, and when he acquired his first company, a restaurant hood cleaning company, it was barely profitable. The equipment sucked, it was outdated, the crew turnover was high, lots of people were leaving, and margins were razor thin, like he wasn't making any money. But what he did, and what you can hear on this interview as well, like most people obviously would have not bought this business. And even if they bought, maybe they've tried to get rid of this as quickly as possible to just move on to the next one. But what I can say is not Santino. He became obsessed with really optimizing it all, optimizing the routing logistics. He restructured every shift schedule. He sat on a cleanings. He learned the craft himself. He got really close to the details that turned the broken business into a predictable cash flowing engine. And again, you can see like there is this obsession, what you're looking for. And same with Dustin Gann, like he started buying low multiple asset heavy businesses, something that not too many people are interested in. And he's looked for legacy equipment manufacturers, and he didn't outsource diligence. He toured every facility, talked to every operator, studied the machinery himself, because he knew that unless he understood the heartbeat of the business, what made it hum, where it broke down, he wouldn't have the edge to scale it. So obsession is what separates those top 1% holdco builders and those who never maybe acquire a company or just give up after 2 or 3 or maybe 5 years of searching. Now, when it comes to Drew and Alex, the Chainsmoker guys, you can see it in their calendars, like what they're doing, their systems, their financial models, how they describe their portfolio companies, how their like follow-ups. Because the more you listen to them, the more you understand. Like, and Drew said on the interview as well, I've never felt comfortable for longer than a few days. I'll finish a song, feel great about it, and 2 days later, I'll be asking, is it actually good? Could it be better? And this guy is like has like a true paranoia, and that's why they're still like world's, I would say, top 5 DJs, and traveling around the world, playing headline shows on a large stadiums. And what else can holdco builders, holdco operators learn from this? I would say, like, I wrote down 2 questions. Before you buy a business, ask yourself 2 things. Could I spend the next 5 years obsessing over this business and still be curious? Because the example from Drew, they've been creating songs for the past 15 plus years. And after another one launches, he takes it maybe day off. And then he's like, okay, is it good enough? Should I do another one? So this is a great question. Like, could you spend the next 5 years obsessing over this business and still be curious? And number 2, if no one paid attention and I had to run this thing in the dark, would I still do it? Because all those early days, all those later periods as well, once the acquisition is done, it's just you versus you at the end of the day. And again, if no one paid attention and I had to run this thing in the dark, would I still do it? Because obsession isn't about the size of the market or maybe sexiness of the industry. It's about your relationship to the work. Do you really enjoy that? And Alex and Drew didn't get rich because they followed the template. They got rich because they cared more, worked longer, and never stopped torturing themselves in service of quality. And that's what I believe are like real operators do. That's what real owners do. And if you're building a holding company, like portfolio of multiple businesses, especially in this area where money is plentiful but focus is rare, that kind of obsession is your ultimate edge, and at least it could be. The next big lesson, preparation meets luck. One of my favorite parts of the conversation with the Chainsmokers came from Alex when he said that we literally booked our own flights. We processed every invoice. We had spreadsheets for club promoters. We ran the CRM system for Chainsmokers fans. Show me how many DJs are willing to do that and how many DJs are actually doing this. And this really like got me thinking of whatever I'm building, I should be doing it even more seriously. There is always another level. And if you take just the DJs, like the guys had a CRM system for their fans. It's unbelievable. You don't expect to hear that from people who would eventually like headline festivals, win a Grammy, and later launch venture fund. But this was early, before their first hit song, Selfie, before the arenas. They did all this because when they were like 2 unknown guys fighting to get booked at the low rent clubs and share blog space with hundreds of other hopeful DJs. And again, they weren't just writing music, they were laying pipes. And let me walk you through their plumbing, how their plumbing actually looked like. First of all, they had no management team, no label, no staff, just Drew and just Alex. Every single booking was manually logged. They built their own performance database. They built their own email list to promote shows, to share releases. They handled merchandise themselves, designing it, sourcing it, shipping it. Drew was in the studio producing music. Alex was coordinating bookings and fan interactions. When they were on the tour, they'd stay in the cheapest hotels and then go back to work the next morning. Hi friends, Brandon and Spacebar Studios are my go-to team for demand generation. They are offering a special offer to Holdco Builders followers, a free 90-day growth roadmap for your business. Get 2 to 3 concrete steps you can take today to grow your demand generation engine. Head over to spacebarstudios.co to claim your growth roadmap, as there is limited availability. First come, first served. Now, back to the show. You see, they were running a business without the brand recognition that makes things easier. But what's more impressive is that They were doing it with the mindset of building something to scale before there was any scale. And so when the viral moment finally came, like Selfie exploded in 2014, they didn't flinch. While others scrambled to hire managers or chase leverage, they had already built the backend. They knew who to invoice, what their costs were, how much they were owned, and what to reinvest in. The pipes were ready, and that let them focus on amplifying the moment instead of surviving it. Now, fast forward today, the Chainsmokers have a fully systemized business platform, a full touring operation, a creative studio for content, a merch line that vertically integrated, a venture firm, Mantis, it's called Mantis, backed by top-tier LPs like Mark Cuban, Keith Robonis, and General Catalyst, a team of operators behind the scenes who manage everything from fan data to investment diligence. And what's wild is that even today, they still care about the plumbing. In the interview, Drew said, "We're still reading cap tables. We're still building decks. We are involved in every decision." So what Alex brought out on a long LinkedIn post was as well, like, they don't want to be those celebrity investors because once in a while they get emails. It actually happens pretty often. They get emails from the companies that they don't want to have those celebrity investors. And this really annoyed Alex because he said that there is a huge team of people behind Mantis, the VC firm, and they don't want to be viewed like celebrities because they want to be viewed as great investors, and they sure are great investors. They are hands-on founders, and they have this great discipline, I would even say like the infrastructure first mindset, and this makes them sustainable, and this makes them successful over such a long period of time. So now when it comes to holdco builders, because this exact theme shows up in almost every successful guest I've spoken on the Holdco Builders podcast. I just take the episode with Jack Bennett at Lighthouse Capital, and Jack is young, sharp operator in Canada, buying, they're doing like 10 to 15 business deals per year. Lots of people will say that, okay, this is impressive. They still miss many things. And Lighthouse, I would say, didn't start by closing deals. It started by building plumbing, a diligent checklist for sub 15 million deals, standard legal docs and onboarding workflows, shared accounting templates, a centralized hiring playbook for portfolio operators, weekly team stand-up across all acquired entities. Jack really built the internal system to onboard businesses at scale before they're trying to scale. That's why they've been able to grow fast without burning out or breaking things. And the same pattern shows up with Josh Scott, who runs multiple swim schools under a holding company. And when I asked Josh what actually drives growth, he didn't talk about marketing or expansion. What he said, most people think it's about getting more kids in the pool, but it's about having the systems to support 300 families per week across 3 locations with part-time teenage swim instructions. That's not glamorous. That's, let's say, plumbing. And just implemented a unified scheduling system, automated payroll, real-time feedback tracking for every instructor, and a backend CRM that tracks a family from injury to repeat sign-up. All that's not glamorous. That's plumbing. Just implemented a unified scheduling system, automated payroll, real-time feedback tracking for every instructor, and a backend CRM that tracks a family from inquiry to repeat sign-up. And when he expanded into a second or third location, he didn't start from scratch. He duplicated a tested system. That's the beauty of building plumbing first company. You make growth boring, predictable, and scalable. And if you take more of such cases, in every one of those, the plumbing came before the growth. And here's the key insight, building systems is a bet on your future self. It's saying, we don't have 10 businesses yet, but we'll build like we do. That's what Alex and Drew did in year 1 of the Chainsmokers. That's what Jack and Josh did before scaling their portfolios. Implementation. If you're running or acquiring a company today, ask yourself, if your revenue doubled overnight, would your systems survive it? Do you know how information flows in your company? Or is it tribal knowledge? Are you solving problems reactively? Or have you documented your top 10 recurring headaches and created a process to eliminate them? If the answer to any of those is no, you're probably underbuilt. And here is a challenge I personally should have to go through, and many of you listening should do as well. Same for investors, like build a plumbing roadmap for the next 6 months. List every unsexy system your future self will thank you. Clean monthly financials, centralized hiring templates, unified metrics dashboards, standard onboarding flow, communication rhythms. Like then chip away at it, one piece at a time. And probably it feels slow at first, but then when growth hits, when the selfie song moment comes, like it did with the Chainsmokers in 2014, you won't be scrambling. You're ready and you know exactly what to do next, and it doesn't really affect anything when it comes to operating it all. Number 3, you got your identity and this is your moat. So what do you stand for? In the conversation, Alex and Trio shared something that every creator, operator, and investor should pay attention to. They were talking about their early tracks, the pre-selfie area, when they were remixing indie songs, DJing dingy clubs, and chasing attention any way they could. And back then, they were technically good. Their songs were well produced, but they weren't breaking through. What they said, we listened to stuff we were making, and it just sounded like everything else, Alex said. We didn't have a voice, Trio added. It was clean, it worked, but it wasn't us. That's when they had their hard time and the true, serious conversation between each other. What's something only the Chainsmokers can do? And that question became their creative North Star. And from that moment on, we can say everything changed. And Drew started singing on their own tracks. Not because he thought he had the best voice, as I said, remember? But because it was authentic. It was theirs. They began writing songs about real emotions, real relationships, real insecurities. Like Closer, the name of the song Closer, the name of the song Paris. They stopped outsourcing production, leaning instead into imperfection, texture, and vulnerability. They went from sounding like everyone else to creating songs that felt like something. That became the core of the Chainsmokers' identity, not just artists, but as operators of a brand. Their shows became immersive, their visuals matched the mood of the music. They shaped the feeling that fans could identify immediately, whether hearing a track or attending a concert, and they reinforced that identity across every touchpoint. And today, the Chainsmokers aren't just a band, they're a world. Now, let's translate that to Holdco builders, because this exact pattern shows up again and again in most durable portfolios. We often talk about brand in a consumer context, but it's just as critical in unsexy industries like HVAC, insurance, packaging, and, say, commercial painting. Let's start with Robert Lombardi. And when Robert enters a deal, whether it's flooring, government contracting, or B2B services, sellers know who he is. They've read his materials. They've heard about his approach. There's a narrative around the Lombardi group. Stable capital, operational help, long-term commitment. No ego, just execution. Robert doesn't rely on being the highest bidder. His identity, his reputation wins the deals. Now, compare that to the operator who hides behind an anonymous email address, sends a templated LOI, and never explains who they are. Who would you rather sell to as a seller? Another perfect example is Chris Sparling at Tiny. Chris told me their success isn't about chasing every deal. It's about being known for one thing, being the best possible home for an owner's business. Tiny has an internal playbook, a public philosophy, and a tone that sets them apart. When owners hear from them, it doesn't feel like another PE firm. It feels like a conversation with a peer. And Chris said, we've had deals where we are not the top price, but the seller said, you're the ones I want to work with. That's what identity does. It earns trust before a single term sheet is drafted. And identity doesn't just help with acquisitions. It helps with recruiting, it helps with culture and execution. Look at Ben Little. Ben runs a 50 million plus franchisee Holdco with 800 employees. His companies aren't just service brands. They reflect a shared ethos. Ben talked a lot about people not quitting jobs, but quitting managers. That belief shows up in how they run and how they train their general managers, how they promote from within, how they communicate across the organization. Every employee knows what they're part of. It's not just Zaxby's, it's Ben's version of Zaxby's, with clear expectations, accountability, and pride. And that's how they've been able to build their identity. Now, let's return to the Chainsmokers for a moment. In the interview, Drew said, "We don't want people to just hear our music. We want them to know it's us. From the production to the story to the vibe. It has to be our world." And then Alex added, "We spent years trying to be everything to everyone. It wasn't until we got honest about who we were, what we loved, and what we were not, that things took off." I believe the same is true in business. And when implementing that to holdco operators, if you're building a portfolio, you should ask yourself, what is something only you would acquire? Why would a seller pick you over someone with deeper pockets? What story would your employees tell a friend about working for your firm? If you stripped away your website and pitch deck, what's left? And I want to come back to the question, why would a seller pick you over someone with deeper pockets? My own experience is I'm currently chasing one deal, and this company does like 12 million in revenue and 2 million EBITDA. It's in heavy equipment space. And this process has been going on almost like 8-9 months, and now we're talking to the banks, and for one moment, for 2 months, this deal was off. But they came back to me, and what they said was very interesting was they had few offers where owners, like the new owners, would have paid much more than I am at this stage. But what's interesting is that I've been going to the sauna. We've been doing like gold plunges with the owners. I've been doing all sorts of things. I've had like multiple dinners, lunches. I've met maybe, 20 times. And we've had like so many different phone calls. And I asked from them, why did you come back? Like, why didn't you close this? I think it wasn't maybe all cash deal, but it was much higher offer than I'm working on at the moment. And he said that we're looking for this young, energetic guy, not just those old guys who are super rich and they just want to buy something. We see something in you, and this is great to hear. And this has been only possible because of the relationships I've tried to build over the past like 8-9 months. And they're great people as well, I mean. So coming back to this identity thing, you gotta understand that your identity is your moat. It shapes your acquisition pipeline. It defines your recruiting advantage. It creates long-term cultural coherence across businesses, and it allows you to say no to things that don't align, which may be your biggest power of all. So take the Chainsmokers lesson seriously, very seriously. Build something that only you can build. Doesn't need to be the cheapest, doesn't need to be the loudest, but it must be something unique for you. Number 4, presence is power. And if you want to understand why the Chainsmokers are still relevant 10 years after their breakout hit, you can look at their sound, their branding, their evolution. One thing that really comes up is they actually show up because they don't delegate too many things when they started, and this has built like an immense moat with their people, with their fans, as they did everything themselves. Drew shared this story in the interview, like, we do a show, then immediately go back to the hotel and respond to every fan direct message, every promoter email, every inquiry. It wasn't scalable, but it was essential. They were building trust in the most analog way possible by just being there. And the same behavior carried into their rise. After they became famous, they didn't hide behind managers. They still showed up to small writing sessions. They spent real time with founders when they launched Mantis. They visited portfolio companies. They sat with the VCs, not to pitch deals, but to learn. And Alex said on the interview as well, like probably the being famous part has opened so many doors to excellent VCs, excellent GPs of large funds, and he's super grateful for that, and because he's been able to learn so many things. And Alex said that our edge is that people know we are serious, not just because we say it, but because we show up. Obviously, I believe this like being a famous GP and like a world famous DJ reaches out asking for your time, you're more easily and happy to give this time to someone who's famous than someone who's maybe in the same position but not a world famous DJ. So obviously this helps, but it doesn't mean that you can't do that without being famous. And now some of their investments with Mantis, today they manage, I believe, more than 200 million. But the first one was much smaller. And they've invested in companies like Liquid Death and Venture Science. And what they do constantly is speaking on the panels, doing keynotes. And this playbook hasn't changed. Like, presence is still the superpower. Now, think about this in the context of building a holding company. We live in a world of virtual diligence, of market sourcing. Understanding all this, like, presence is still the superpower. Now, think about that in the context of building a holding company. We live in a world which it's all online, it's all Teams, it's all Zoom, it's virtual meetings, everything is fast, quick. But some special stories I've seen and heard from the guests was... I forgot what was the name of the guest, but what he did was he was chasing those government contracts. And these actually became the cornerstone of his holding company. And he didn't just send the quality of earnings team. What he did was he flew out multiple times, not to pitch, but to listen. He went to ride-alongs, he talked to frontline technicals, he learned the language of the business before trying to really run it. And he said that people think you win deals with LOIs. You win them by earning trust months before, and that requires being there. And if you take Luca Hani at Amboro Capital, Luca isn't trying to outbeat everyone. He's building a solo holdco focused on succession in Switzerland. And what's his superpower? Proximity. He spends time on site with the owners. He meets their families. He doesn't just ask about the EBITDA. He asks what they'll do after the sale. That's a high touch. That's presence. And again, think about Jack Bennett, one of the guests. Jack is buying 10 to 15 businesses a year, as I said. Most people would automate or delegate operator relationship, but Jack makes time for one-on-one calls with every single key leader every week, even in businesses doing under 1 million in EBITDA, because he knows small businesses are emotional assets. They don't run on spreadsheets, they run on trust. And I think there is a simple and brutal lesson here. People don't trust who they don't see. And in the world where most people are looking for leverage and automation, showing up can become your true edge. Again, implementation for holdco operators. Create the presence calendar. Map out physical visits, operator one-on-ones, plan tours, in-person founder coffees. Pick 5 key people in your ecosystem, employees, sellers, co-investors, and ask, when's the last time I was physically present with them? And then fix the gaps. And the last one, use site visits not just to observe, but to listen. The goal isn't oversight, it's understanding. I personally done probably 100 plus more factory visits, and it's surprising how much you can learn about the founder, about the industry, about the tailwinds, about the future opportunities, and very importantly, about the competitors, because the owners will share all those stories if you stay there and ask great questions. And also important part, presence compounds. It builds cultural clue. It gives you edge in deals. It allows you to see what dashboards can't. And now when coming to back Alex and Drew, they told something interesting. The people who've stayed with us over the years, promoters, fans, founders, they stay because we showed up when no one else did. That's it. That's the strategy. And if you're building a holding company yourself, especially across multiple geographics or verticals, you must powerful. That's it. That's the strategy. And if you're building a holding company yourself, especially across multiple geographics or verticals, your most powerful operating system might be the plane ticket, a calendar, and a mindset that says, I'll be there. I'll just be there. Number 6, play long-term games with long-term people. This quiet line was what Alex dropped midway through the conversation that says something about the Chainsmokers. And obviously now Mantis, their venture firm. And what he said, we don't care about momentum or hype. We care about what it looks like in year 10. Now, imagine that two of the most streamed artists, one of the most streamed artists in the world, who could easily ride trend cycles, monetize virality, and stay comfortably surface level. What they do instead, they obsess about what it looks like in year 10. Obviously, it wasn't always like this, because back in 2013, 2014, when they exploded into the scene with the song Selfie, they were surrounded by people chasing heat, brands wanted to license the track, promoters were offering high-fee club gigs, industry executives were whispering, you've got 6 months, make it count. Most artists in their position would have doubled down on the meme, churned out clones, taken the money, and just run. But Alex and Drew made a different choice. Again, they stopped playing short games. They stopped producing easy club hits and started writing full-length songs about heartbreak, insecurity, and identity. That was a career risk. No one knew if people would listen. But they cared more about building a world that lasted, that one that really popped for one moment. Even when they had nothing to prove, they kept showing up to write camps, stayed involved in every decision, and quietly built a venture firm, Mantis, that is now regarded as a serious player, not a celebrity gimmick. They partnered with General Catalyst. They put real capital to work. They didn't just get access. They earned a reputation. Because if you read and if you look at the businesses they've invested, you must have a great reputation to do that. So what makes long-term players so powerful, whether in music, business, or investing, is that everyone else burns out. Everyone else wants to flip, the quick hit, the IRR, but the long-term thinkers, they get better deals, stronger teams, and deeper trust. Because the people around them know they're not going anywhere. Because even the Chainsmokers' early collaborations, writers, promoters, team members, many of them are still with them today. Because they knew Drew and Alex weren't just it for the heat. They were building something permanent. It's the exact same reason Tiny, the Canadian holdco led by Andrew Wilkinson and Chris Sparling, gets off-market deal flow. Sellers want performance. They want to know the buyer will pick up the phone in 5 years. So here's the key insight. Long-term thinking isn't just a strategy, it's a signaling device. It tells everyone, from your capital partners to your target companies, who you are. It says, I'm not just playing for the next fund, I'm playing for a legacy. So just take a look at the Holdco Builders podcast. It's episode 100 soon. It's been almost 2 years now when I've been doing this. Same with the private equity guy Twitter. It today has more than 50,000 followers. I've been posting every single day for the past 2.5 years, and I'm planning to do this as well. Again, I may not be the smartest investor, capital allocator, but over time, I will attract those talented people into my life as well. Today, there are many of them already. There's going to be more and more. But one thing you and others who are following, who are listening, who are reading, can be sure is that this guy just keeps showing up, no matter what. I'm 32 years old now. I just really enjoy doing all this, and I just keep doing this because that's why I'm recording those episodes, because you can listen. The guys from Chainsmokers, all they matter is what is going to happen on year 10, and they just keep pushing and keep just staying in the game, creating new songs, creating a song, taking a day off, and creating another one. And again, long-term thinking isn't just a strategy. It's a signaling device. So what is the implementation for Holdco Builders? Number one, make your long-term orientation visible. Don't just say it, prove it. Publish your philosophy, highlight your multi-year team retention, share stories of companies you've grown slowly and well. One of the portfolio companies, Modena, we've been building that for almost 5 years now. It's been very slow, very long journey, but we're just getting started, and it's 5 years. Number two, slow down early. Take longer with sellers, with hiring, with diligence. Fast wins often come with slow regrets. I have people reaching out to me, wanting to partner with me. And for various reasons, maybe this has been taking longer. And many of them, I've never heard of them because they just had this hype or this one idea and it just went away very quickly. And This is what you see. I think the older you get, the more you see people becoming super hyped about something. Is it a partnership? Is it some type of deal? Whatever it could be. It could be even building a holding company. They have all those pipelines they've built, but then they can't raise capital and then they stop. But if you keep pushing, keep finding great deals, keep talking to more investors, eventually you'll get it done. So number 3, play the relationship game. Every founder you meet, every investor you meet, even if they don't sell, even if they don't invest, should walk away wanting to work with you someday. That's how you build a pipeline that compounds over decades, if you decide to play for decades. And finally, ask yourself, what am I doing today that makes me more trustworthy in 10 years than I am now? Because if you play the long game with long-term people, in music, in venture, in business, you win a game that very few even realize exists. And let's see if we can make year 10 Holdco Builders. You can just see 10 years of different interviews, the evolution of the guests. Many of them will want to come back once in a while. The evolution of their portfolios, the evolution of their businesses, the evolution of, most importantly, themselves. Because again, what am I doing today that makes me more trustworthy in 10 years than I am now? This is a great question you can ask yourself as well. Number 7, build a world, not a stack of companies. Guys, totally off topic, but this episode took me so long to record that I ran out of time, so I had to go to the hairdresser because I had time booked. And now, first time ever, in the beginning of the episode, I have one haircut, and at the end, now recording, I have a new one. So I just look more professional. So just a random thing, but super funny, which I just realized now. So but yeah, back to the research. At one point in the interview, Drew casually said something that really stopped me. And I remember I stopped the podcast, and what he said was, we are not just making songs, we are building a world. Yes, it may sound poetic, but if you dig into how the Chainsmokers actually operate, it's one of the most, I would say, practical frameworks for Holdco Builders I've heard myself, because what they've done is they've created an ecosystem, not just a series of projects. Let's rewind to the beginning again. In the early 2010s, Alex and Drew, first of all, they weren't famous. They were remixing indie tracks, playing empty clubs, and sleeping in cheap hotels between gigs. They didn't have a brand, they didn't have a label, and they were just Drew and Alex, no manager. But even then, and I would say especially then, they started laying the foundations for something bigger than just the next song. Number 1, what they did, they built a visual identity, album art, live show visuals, stage design, that all pointed in the same emotional direction, which was like moody, nostalgic, honest, and raw. Remember, the CRM for fans. So they built a fan community, not just broadcasting to fans, but engaging them through meetups, handwritten notes, after-party hangouts, and fan-created content that got reposted. And lastly, they built a creative style, one that blended EDM energy with emotional storytelling, driven by their own vocals and lyrics. Imagine the moat compared to others who can use the same devices. They had Drew singing, and they did all the storytelling and everything themselves. So slowly, piece by piece, they built a world their fans wanted to live in. Drew said, "We wanted people to feel like we were them, like our story and theirs were the same." And if you take fast forward today, that the world knows them like their hit albums, Grammy wins, sold out world tours, brand collaborations, a venture firm, portfolio companies, and even original IP like Paris being developed into a full media projects. Thinking that this all happened by an accident? No, it didn't happen by accident, because the Chainsmokers, they weren't just like, let's call them stacking wins. They were curating identity. Everything they did, from late night show to set the pitch meeting at Mantis, is all filtered through the lens of, does this fit our world? Now, let's bring this home to the Holdco Builders audience, you listening, and implementation for Holdco operators. So if you want to build a world, not just a stack of logos, here's what you probably should do. Number 1, Codify your values. Don't just write them on a slide. Make them visible in decisions, in how you fire, in how you promote, in how you create new hires. Number 2, create portfolio rituals. Maybe it's a monthly operator call. Maybe it's a Slack channel for wins. Maybe it's an internal podcast or newsletter. Just make it feel like one organism. That's how I've tried to build up from the day one. I have this podcast, I have this Twitter, Private Equity Guy Twitter, I have this newsletter, which I'm sending out every single week. I've been doing that for years now. Like, you're creating this, like a portfolio rituals. Whoever invests in me or in the companies in the future, they know me. They hopefully like me. They hopefully trust me once they've done the decision, and more importantly, obviously, before they've done this decision. So it's like a small world. Number 3, design onboarding like it's your product. When a new company joins, don't just plug in systems, plug them into your story. Number 4, build cross-pollination. Introduce your general managers to each other. Share vendor list. Share mistakes. Shared language is what makes people feel connected. Remember what the Chainsmokers did with their songs. One thing was about the breakup idea they had. I think it was Alex's breakup, but they wanted to create a song of this. And obviously it can't be just about Alex. So I think that's the origin from the song, about the song Paris, which is obviously streamed like billion plus times on Spotify. Number 5, ask your employees or partners, what world are you part of? If they say a brand name and nothing else, you've got the work to do, because there's always more than just a brand, just a logo. So back to Chainsmokers. They started as 2 guys making bootleg remixes in the bedroom. Today, they're one of the most influential creative operators in music, and I would even say in venture. And that's what Patrick O'Shaughnessy said as well, that he would have never thought that these guys are so smart. So, but they didn't get there by chasing plays. They got there by creating a world people wanted to live in. So, if you're building a holding company yourself or investment firm, that's your real job too. Not just growth, not just diversification, but belonging. So there's like a moment near the end of this conversation with Alex and Drew that stuck to me as well. They were talking about what they're most proud of. And surprisingly, it's not the streams, not the tour numbers, not even the fund itself. And Drew paused and he said that, honestly, the fact that we're still doing this, that we're still together, that we still care. And because behind every chart-topping hit, every Mantis investment, every stage they've stood on, there's a foundation of trust and commitment and a shared long-term vision that has been lasting over a decade, and it probably lasts another one if you listen this interview with them and see how they think and how they view the world, investments, music. It's an art. You heard them joke like brothers. That's a funny thing. They can finish each other's sentences like a clockwork. They check each other's blind spots. Obviously, they've overcome burnouts, criticism, evolution, reinvention, and all this by not just being talented and being together, but again, doing it all together. This is rare in music, this is rare in venture, and obviously very rare in business, because partnerships, they come and go. But if you can build something for long time together, that's very special. Now, what I saw in the Chainsmokers story and what I've been echoed across 70 plus, I would even say 90, 95 plus holdco builders interviews is that excellence of rhythms, no matter the industry. And I wrote down some of the things. Craft over hacks. Drew spent years perfecting production before anyone knew his name. Alex built fan CRMs before they had fans. Just like some of the podcast guests, take Josh Scott, learned to run a swim school with teenagers before buying more locations. He tried to do it once before expanding. The details matter, if we can say that. Number 2, plumbing before scale. They booked their own flights, wrote their own contracts, managed their own spreadsheets. That's the same as the podcast guest. Number 2, plumbing before scale. Again, Drew and Alex, they booked their own flights. They wrote their own contracts. They managed their own spreadsheets. Obviously, they created their own songs. They did all the preparation, as I mentioned, the CRMs, the systems, everything before they got famous. So once it happened, the thing didn't break. Number 3, identity as moat. The moment they stopped trying to be like everyone else and started sounding like them, they broke through. It's very hard sometimes. I remember a guy, an artist, and he really wanted to be he's probably not the only one, but become like a Justin Bieber. And he met like a very famous agent and who said to him, there is already one Justin Bieber. You can't be him and you always will be number 2. So it's better to just be yourself and accomplish that you will be number 1. So identity as moat. You have all those advantages and you just got to use them. No need to be afraid of who you are or what are your ideas when buying businesses, operating businesses, your style. We are all different, but only the famous ones, we look up to them because they're famous. But in order for them to become famous, they made this decision that they relied on their own strengths and who they are. Another one is presence over polish. The Chainsmokers didn't win because they had the best press photos. They won because they were there in the studio, at the club, in the van, answering DMs, adding members to their CRM. And that's the same thing you can do when looking for portfolio companies, talking to investors. One thing is sending emails. Another thing is just booking a flight to London to meet those investors in person and just showing who you really are and what you want to accomplish. Another one, long-termism as strategy. They ignored the 6-month hype window, which they got with the song Selfie. And they built for a 10-year period. So to all the great holdcos as well, which many of them I've had on the podcast, take Chris Sparling, for example. They refuse to change anything. They're just doing what they want to do. They just know that this long game is the right play, and they just keep playing this. So big lesson here. But this can be only done when we're coming to the very, very first thing we discussed today, and it's obsession. If you're not obsessed, not much you can do. Another one, world building instead of asset stacking. The Chainsmokers aren't just a music group. They're a universe. That's how they built their business, and hopefully you can get some lessons from yourself as well, like how you're building things. So what does all of that add up to? It adds up to the same question I'll have you with today. Are you building a world worth joining? Because anyone can buy a business, anyone can raise money, anyone can chase cash flow, slap a brand on it and call it a strategy. But like building the world, a cohesive, value-driven, multi-decade ecosystem that attracts talent, keeps sellers engaged, earns loyalty from employees and customers, and compounds into something durable, this takes vision. Big lesson from the Chainsmoker. This takes patience. Obviously, the guys have been doing that for 15 years. And this takes craft. Obviously, you have to be extremely good at what you do, otherwise very hard. Just like making a great album or a timeless company. So whether you're pre-acquisition, post-close, or 5 businesses deep, ask yourself, what's the sound of your holding company? What are the rituals that define it? What stories will your team tell 10 years from now? And lastly, what version of yourself do you need to become to keep building the world? These are very good questions. No one is going to hand you scale. No one is going to give you permanence. And no one is going to believe in your world until you do it yourself. But if you do the work, if you build the pipes, stay present, bet on people, and tell the truth, you can create something that outlasts you. And that's what the Chainsmokers did. And that's what the best holdco builders do. And that's what I hope you take with you from this episode, which you just listened. So thanks for listening. My name is Mick, and see you in the next holdco builders.